I came home that afternoon and saw something that made my heart drop. A large moving truck was parked in my driveway, and 3 strangers were carrying my furniture out of my own house. Standing on my porch, arms crossed like she owned the place, was the president of our HOA, Karen. And when I asked her what she thought she was doing, she looked straight at me and said something I will never forget. "Relax. This house doesn't belong to you anymore." What Karen didn't know was that she had just made the biggest mistake of her life. I had only lived in this neighborhood for about 8 months. It was a quiet suburban community, the kind with perfectly trimmed lawns, identical mailboxes, and way too many HOA rules. But honestly, I didn't mind it at first. The house was beautiful. My kids loved the park down the street. My wife finally felt like we had a real home. Everything was peaceful until Karen started showing up. Karen was the kind of HOA president who treated the neighborhood like her personal kingdom. If your trash can stay outside 10 minutes too long, she noticed. If your grass was half an inch taller than allowed, she noticed. If your car was parked slightly crooked in your driveway, she definitely noticed. At first, it was just annoying warning letters. Then it turned into fines. Then it turned into something much worse. One morning, I found a bright orange notice taped to my front door. HOA violation, property under review. I had no idea what that even meant. So I went to the HOA office to ask. Karen was sitting behind the desk when I walked in, scrolling through her phone like she owned the world. She didn't even look up at first. Finally, she sighed and said, "Yes?" I explained that I received the notice and asked what the issue was. She leaned back in her chair and smirked. "Well, according to HOA records, your property has several compliance issues." "Such as?" I asked. She flipped through a folder slowly like she was enjoying the moment. "Unauthorized fence repairs. Landscaping modifications. Unapproved driveway resurfacing." I stared at her. "Those were repairs after a storm," I said. "And the driveway was already like that when we bought the house." Karen shrugged. "Not our problem." Then she said something that instantly made my stomach tighten. "If the violations aren't resolved, the HOA can take further action." "What kind of action?" She smiled. "The kind you won't like." After that meeting, things got strange. HOA inspectors started showing up constantly. Every week, there was another notice, another fine, another warning. It felt like Karen had decided to make my life miserable for fun, but I still didn't expect what happened next. 2 weeks later, I came home from work earlier than usual. As I turned onto my street, I noticed something strange. A large moving truck was parked in front of my house. At first, I thought maybe a neighbor was moving. Then I saw my couch, being carried out of my front door. I slammed on the brakes and jumped out of the car. "Hey, what are you doing?" 3 movers froze and looked at each other. Then I heard heels clicking on my porch. Karen stepped forward slowly, completely calm. "Oh good," she said. "You're back." I walked up the driveway in disbelief. "Why are people taking my furniture out of my house?" Karen crossed her arms. "The property is being reclaimed under HOA authority." My brain almost short-circuited. "You can't be serious." She handed me a paper. "Failure to comply with HOA violations. Property repossession. Eviction enforcement." I stared at the document. It looked official, but something felt very wrong. "Karen," I said slowly, "this house belongs to me." She tilted her head. "Not anymore." Behind her, one of the movers carried out a box of my kids' toys. That's when something inside me snapped. Because Karen thought she had won. But there was one thing she didn't know. One very important detail about this property. And the moment she found out, everything fell apart. Karen stood there on my porch like she had already won. Behind her, the movers were still carrying boxes out of my house. My kitchen appliances, my kids' toys, even our family photo frames. I could feel my hands shaking. Not because I was scared, because I was furious. "Stop," I said to the movers. They froze immediately. Karen frowned. "You can't interfere with an HOA enforcement action." I slowly turned to her. "Karen, I'm giving you one chance to call these people back inside." She laughed. Actually laughed. "Oh, please. The paperwork is already filed." She tapped the document she handed me earlier. "According to the HOA bylaws, failure to comply with violations allows us to reclaim the property." I stared at her for a moment. Then I asked one simple question. "Did you even check the county property records before doing this?" Her smile faded slightly. "What does that have to do with anything?" I pulled out my phone. "Because if you had, you would know something very important about this house." Karen rolled her eyes. "Oh, this should be good." I dialed a number. Within seconds, someone picked up. Hey, I said calmly. Yeah, it's happening right now. Karen crossed her arms. Calling your lawyer won't help you. I looked up at her. That wasn't my lawyer. 10 minutes later, 2 police cars pulled onto the street. The flashing lights instantly grabbed everyone's attention. Neighbors started stepping outside their homes, watching from their lawns. Karen's confidence started to crack. 2 officers walked up the driveway. Afternoon, one of them said, "We received a call about a property dispute." Karen immediately stepped forward. "Yes, officer. Thank goodness you're here. I'm the HOA president, and we're legally repossessing this property." The officer looked at her, then looked at me. "Sir," I handed him my phone. "Could you please speak to the county office?" He listened for about 30 seconds. Then his eyebrows slowly lifted. He handed the phone back to me and turned to Karen. "Ma'am, I think you need to hear this." Karen looked confused. "What?" The officer cleared his throat. "According to county records, this property is not owned by the HOA, and it never was." Karen scoffed. "Well, obviously, it belongs to the homeowner." The officer shook his head. "No." He pointed at me. "It belongs to him and the development company." Karen blinked. "What?" I took a slow breath. Then I explained the one thing she never bothered to check. The reason I had moved into this neighborhood in the first place. "You see," I said calmly, "I'm one of the investors who helped fund this entire development." Karen's face turned pale. "I own the land under several of these homes." The officer nodded. "And according to county documents, this property is under a protected ownership agreement." Karen looked like someone had pulled the ground out from under her. "That's impossible." I gestured toward the movers. "You broke into my house. You removed property. You attempted an illegal eviction." The officer turned to the movers. "Gentlemen, I suggest you start putting everything back." They didn't argue. Boxes started going back inside immediately. My couch returned to the living room. My kids' toys were placed back in the hallway. Meanwhile, Karen just stood there, frozen. The officer looked back at her. "Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step aside." Karen finally snapped. "This is ridiculous. I'm the HOA president." The officer didn't even react. "That doesn't give you the authority to remove someone from their home." Then he added something that made the entire street go silent. "In fact, what you did could be considered unlawful entry and property interference." Karen's face turned bright red. Neighbors were whispering now, watching everything. For the first time since I met her, Karen looked small, very small. She tried one last desperate move. "You'll regret humiliating me like this," she muttered. I shook my head. "No, Karen." Then I pointed toward the police cars. "You will." 3 weeks later, the HOA held an emergency meeting. Karen wasn't there. Turns out when the board reviewed what she did, they removed her as president immediately. The HOA even issued a formal apology to my family. And the fines she gave me? Every single one was erased. But the best part came a month later. Karen's house went up for sale, and the neighborhood finally became quiet again. Sometimes justice doesn't come quickly, but when it does, it's worth the wait.